National Fishermen and Pacific Marine Expo are proud supporters of the Galley Stories podcast, as we make similar efforts to highlight the people and topics that define commercial fishing. You can see what that looks like in print and online all year long, as well as every November in Seattle when this community comes together at PME. Check out nationalfisherman.com and pacificmarineexpo.com to learn more.
Hello and welcome to Galley Stories, stories of the Bering Sea and beyond, hosted by Mark Kaler. My name is Penka Jane, podcast deckhand and longtime listener. We'd thank you to subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. Here's today's catch.
Hello guys, welcome to another installment of Galley Stories, stories of the Bering Sea and beyond. I'm your host, Mark Kaler. And today we have Captain Don Brown from the Botany Bay. How you doing, Don?
Really well. Thanks for having us here.
Excellent. What year were you born, where, and what was your introduction into commercial fishing? A lot of questions, but...
Well, that took a while. I didn't get into commercial fishing until I was 30. I was born in Mount Vernon, Washington in 1958. Lived my whole early childhood in Skagit Valley. We lived in Mount Vernon. Then from middle school on, we were in Burlington. And Burlington had a really, really good trades program, I guess you would call it. We had wood shop, we had fiberglass shop, we had machine shop, auto shop, farm shop. Learned how to weld, do fiberglass work, learned everything. It was really a good experience. It's kind of where I think they need to do a lot more of that in schools now. We definitely need people in the trades. But so anyway, I had the offer at 17. I got out of high school at 17. I spent the last year and a half working at the local pay and pack store. My senior year, I only had to go to school 2 courses a year, or 2 courses in the morning, and then I was off to work. I went, graduated, and the manager that I'd been working for had been transferred to Fairbanks, Alaska. So I'd been down talking to the Navy recruiter. I was looking to do something different. At 8 years old, I'd started picking strawberries and then cucumbers and potatoes and then hay, and I kind of wanted out of all of that. I wasn't, heck, I can go join the Navy and go see some things, and then, I was set to go down and talk to the recruiter, or I'd talk to the recruiter. I was all set to go to Seattle, pass the physical, and off to submarine school. And I get a call from my old boss at Pay and Pack and wanted to know if I would like to come to Fairbanks and work for him. I had no interest in going to college. Thought at the time I might want to even be a mechanic, but main thing was, I can go do something different. So a week later, after graduation, I was on an airplane for Fairbanks, Alaska, and my car soon followed, my good old 65 Mustang with 4 potato boxes full of my personal belongings. Stayed there for 4 years. Right away met a pretty little lady. Started dating. Got married a year later. Been married now for 48 years. We stayed in Fairbanks for 4 years. Moved down to Washington. Needed a job. Got a job working for my uncle in fire protection. Did a lot of fire protection work. Involved a lot of sales. I didn't like sales. So I went back to, my dad fixed everything around the house. When we were growing up, I had 3 sisters that ate up a lot of money. So we didn't have a lot. Dad was a truck driver, and so we fixed everything, the car, the house, whatever. So I learned a lot about carpentry and all. So I was kind of getting away from working for my uncle and looking at maybe getting a contractor's license when I got a call from a buddy. He was doing marine electronics, installing marine electronics on a boat out in the Edison River, of all places. Tiny little river here in Skagit County. And So I went out there. They needed a carpenter. I went out there, talked to the guy, and lo and behold, I've got a job finishing the interior of this boat. We weren't quite done. Came time to leave for summer tendering. They were going. So I rode the boat to Alaska, finished out the boat on the way home, way up there. They needed a crewman when we got there, so I stuck around, did Bristol Bay, rode the boat back to Ketchikan, did that. And then the owner of that boat said he had 2 boats being built down in Coos Bay, Oregon.
What was the name of the boat?
The Pole Star and the Ramblin' Rose.
No, the one that you were on.
That was the Rogue.
How did Melanie take it?
Well, we needed money at the time, and it was a good way to get it. But she wasn't happy, you know. I don't blame her. All of a sudden, she's in charge of everything around the house, which she's been really, really good at. She's really, it's amazing the things she's fixed over the VHF or whatever around the house. I mean, it's been good. But, so went from the Rogue down to Coos Bay, started working on the Pole Star, but the guy that owned it was not, was a real absentee owner, and the money to get things done wasn't forthcoming and all that. So at that point, he had sold the Ramblin' Rose, just the bare steel hull, to Joe Williams out of Anacortes, who had the Maverick at the time. So I went over and talked to Joe and went to work for him. Kept hearing the stories about how his engineer was coming down at any time and they were going to get going on the engine room. You know, the crew had just got the lower deck of the boat welded up, the lower house welded up, and I was already in there putting up furring and all, and just moving my way up behind them. And we got pretty much done, and there was still a lot of work to be done in the engine room, and the engineer never showed. So I went up to Joe with my big 3 months of fishing experience in Bristol Bay and Ketchikan, and told them that I could handle that engine room. And so he said, okay. And I became the engineer, helped finish installing all the engines, generators, the plumbing systems, all that. So I knew the boat from the bottom up, inside and out. We took off out of Coos Bay, pretty shitty out. Of course, I promptly get seasick. And the shafts weren't cooling. No water coming through the shaft logs. So I'm down in the engine room with the garden hose, spraying the shafts, temperature gauge shooting on them, keeping them under a certain temperature, puking over there at the same time. And Joe's partner, Louie, calls down. Now, Louie was Minnesota, Chippewa Indian, and a hell of a cook. When we were building the Ramblin' Rose, we would leave the shipyard to go home to a 7-course meal. Favorite drink waiting for you. Walk in the door, have your drink, take a shower, another drink when you came out, dinner served. Well, Louis carried that tradition on as we were leaving Coos Bay, Oregon, heading up to Anacortes. He hollers down, dinner's ready. Of course, I'm over there. There was no way I was having anything to do with dinner. So I stayed down there for 12 hours until the shaft started leaking and cooling, and went up to bed. We took off. Then we got to Anacortes. We were there about 2 weeks finishing up, outfitting the boat. And then we took off. The goal was to get to Prince William Sound for herring. This was like March. So we went up to Prince William Sound. That was just, a couple years after the Valdez, so there wasn't really anything going on. We left there. We went over to Cook Inlet. That was exciting for herring. then on up to Togiak. We did that. Then on up to Norton Sound through the ice pack. I got the job of going up in top of the crow's nest and looking for the leads out through the pack. Made it, way up there, clear up to Unalcleet, the head of the Norton Sound. Stayed there for a while, then back to Bristol Bay to start the salmon season. Did that.
This is all tendering.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Got back to Anacortes, late August, early September. The boat was just going to be a tender boat. Joe built the boat for him and his wife, Ricky, and going to be a tender boat. They did a really good job. Prided myself on the interior work I did. Got lots of compliments, but was getting to the point where just tendering wasn't, they wanted more income. But anyway, I get down. Now I've got 2 summers under my belt. We come tootling into Anacortes to tie to the big port dock. There's a tugboat tied up there. We come in to tie up behind the tugboat, and tide was way down, so reaching over to grab a piling and slipped out of my sandals. Don't ever wear sandals on the boat when you're trying to tie up.
Wear extra toughs.
Yeah. Slipped out of my sandals, upended myself over the rail into the water. Shit. Joe's trying to dock the boat, but the ladder was close by, so I swam over and climbed up the ladder onto the dock, and the other guy ran up to the bow and threw me that line. And of course the tugboat captain comes running down the dock, God, you okay? You okay? Of course, didn't want to admit how stupid I was, and I said, yeah, this is the way we always dock. One of us jumps in, swims ashore, and we throw him the line. But I don't think he believed me. But that was the end of that season. Then, I went home, and while I was up there, I made contact with, we were tendering for Pan Pacific Seafoods. They had this tender they wanted rebuilt inside, so that was my job then. I'd lined this up. I was going to spend the fall doing this. Well, then I get a call, we're sending the Ramblin' Rose crabbing. And so they wanted me to go along. That was the deal they were making to the guy that leased the boat, that I had to go along since I knew the boat inside and out, and they wanted to be sure they were safe. So they talked me into going. I got to go as a full share man, since even though I'd never been crabbing, I knew the boat and I could do hydraulics. So, but the captain hated me. He thought I was the spy, reporting his every move to the owners. Well, that wasn't true at all. And finally, when we got into it, I said, I don't have to report anything. Your fish tickets tell the real story. If you don't have any crab, we spent quite a bit of time anchored up when we should have been fishing. Well, when the rest of the fleet was fishing. They say it always blows harder in bays and passes. Well, where were we anchored? But, so it wasn't a real money producer, but I stayed on there for a couple years, and I got a call from a buddy, good friend of mine, Dale Christofferson, who was half owner in the Alaska Challenger along with Alaska Boat Company. And he needed a crewman, and I needed to change. And I said, yeah, I'd come and do that, Dale, but I'm going to lose my summer tendering gig. And I knew he had somebody that ran the boat in the summer. Dale was, if you're listening, Dale, it's all in jest, but he was above tendering. He'd had his share of being out there. And he says, well, you come and work for me on deck as engineer, and you can have the boat for tendering. So I went for it. We went out and did Opies. We did, or Bairdi, Opies. And Then it came time to load up the Opie gear, and he says, "Go get it. I'm flying to Seattle." So I had to go out, get the boat, get the gear, bring it in. I'd ran 2 strings up to that point, and docked the boat a few times. But so we go out and get the gear, we bring it in, we dock it, send the crew home. Myself, Brian Mullen, and Dwayne, we took off across the Gulf of Alaska. We knew we had a sick reduction gear. Well, we get right off the coast of Vancouver Island. We left straight from King Cove to Cape Flattery. Get right off the coast of Vancouver Island. Those 2 are asleep. I go down, shut the mains down one at a time, and check the oil. Fire them back up, get to the engine room, put her ahead, and I glance down, and one of the pyros is skyrocketed. Pull the engine back, run down to the engine room, and the whole exhaust system is glowing red right to the tip, blowing out black crap all over. Shut it down. So now we're on one main making 3 knots against the current. The other engine is the one with the reduction gear going out. So now we've seen that we needed to save what lube oil was in the lube oil tank, so we're catching it all, and we had been catching it, so we weren't sticking it in the bilge. But now we're pouring the used oil with all the little gold fines in it back in the reduction gear. So now I have to drive up to the dock through the locks with one main with very limited experience, but it went all right. Got up into Lake Union finally, and it's blowing pretty hard. But Alaska Boat Company is right next to Ivers. Ivers has a dock out front for the yacht guys to come driving in. There's 3 nice big yachts parked down on the Ivers dock. When I come screaming in with the Alaska Challenger to whip it around and try to tie it up to Alaska Boat Company, you should have seen. I mean, I could see the size of their eyes when they saw us coming in. They looked like they thought we were taking their yachts out. And we almost did, but we didn't. Got the boat tied up, and there comes Dale walking down. Good job, We rebuilt that boat that summer at the shipyard right there in Lake Union. And then stayed with Dale for quite a while. And then 5 years, I think, on deck. But finally, Alaska Boat Company had another opening on the Tuck Sydney. Poor Gabe had passed away before, and then Edward took it over, and Edward was a local King Cove guy, but Edward ended up getting sick, so I got the call to take the Tuck Sydney, and it was awesome. I mean, it packed 210,000 pounds of opies and 400,000 pounds of salmon. It was a good boat. Alaska Boat Company, a subsidiary of Wardco Packing, they had money, and at least at that time, and they maintained the boats, and that was I really felt good about getting on their boats. If you had a legitimate or even halfway legitimate need for something, you got it. Worked for them right up until before they just sold out and there was no more Wardco Packing. That was the time I decided that I was going to retire. That was about 03. I did that for a couple years, camping all summer, just enjoying life. Then I got a call from my buddy Glenn on the Botany Bay, and man, I need a half a season off. Will you take the boat to Bristol Bay? Okay, just this one time. Well, then that turned into 16 more years. And but that was it. Took the boat to Ketchikan and turned the logbook and the official pin over to the new guy and flew home. But
that's a really fluid, great story.
Well,
What's been your best time at sea? Your best experience at sea?
at sea itself, you know, there's the typical, you know, go out and load the boat with Opies in a day and a half. You know, we really got on them that one Opie season in like a day and a half. Damn, we're the kings, Highliners, race back into town. Well, we were fishing the east side, but up quite a ways. Well, there was other boats having just as good a time, and we got back to town, and oh yeah, well, great, but you're gonna have to sit for 6 days for the boats that are ahead of you.
Mm-hmm.
That was with Peter Pan. And I called over to Alyeska, because Alyeska is a subsidiary of, you know, their Alaska boat, Ward Cove. They're kind of all tied together on that. And Frank says, well, I'll call you if we have a spot. And a day and a half later, Frank calls and he says, you know, I could take off one of your tanks if you want to come over. So that night, we were anchored up not too far from the Blue Wave or the Stellar, whichever one it was there, and outside of Dutch, and waited until it was night. That was before the days of AIS, you know, and snuck on into Alyeska. Offloaded about 100,000 pounds, and they got them off quick, and we snuck back out, went to the fishing grounds, filled up that tank, drove back in. 2 days later, we met our original unloading time, but now we were extra 100,000 pounds up, you know. Felt kind of sneaky, but good,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Got away with something, but,
Excellent.
you know, we've seen some really stuff out there, you know. There was one day Opie fishing. We just had tank check. And they're telling everybody about this monster storm that's going to blow in a few days. So us being a smaller boat, and at the time the quotas were starting to go down a little bit, so we didn't go out ahead of the season and store a load of pots. We had a load of pots all ready to go, and so our thought, we're going to race out there, we're going to drop our pots on the fishing grounds and get back in before the storm hits. So we got out, we put our gear out, we're racing back in, and it's crappy. I mean, it came up like a day and a half early. And we're probably blowing about 50 by now, and we're working our way back to False Pass. Luckily, it was blowing offshore so that we could even enter into False Pass when we got there. And, you know, it's blowing about 50. Probably 15, 20 foot seas. It's night. And we know it's going to get worse, but we're just hoping the closer we get. When the Mayday call comes in, the Nowitna was taking on water about 6 miles away on a parallel course. We're the only boat around. So we turn and we go to them. Well, by now they're a good 20 plus foot, and we're in the trough. And the tucks had scupper flappers, but it was such force on the side of the boat, it was bending them. Then they would stick up. Then the full force of the water would come in through the scupper and lift the wooden deck up. And so we lost boards. Took us 2 hours to go 6 miles in that crap. We could see them over there glowing with their engine rooms flooding. We're getting close. There's a glow. And it goes dark. Crap. We get closer. Now we can see them. And they're down. I mean, the back, 136 foot Navy yard oiler converted to a crabber. They got a long deck, and they're so far down that the very back of the deck is about even with the water. When the lights come back on, they managed to get a generator running, But they still couldn't stop the leak, and we're waiting. The helicopter is supposedly coming by now. They're racing the helicopter out from Kodiak. But the weather was so bad, and he was up and down and choppy. He had to stop in Cold Bay and get fuel. We didn't know that, but now it's been a long, long, long time. Well, they had to leave the house. I think it was 6 of them and a dog. And they're all up on the top of the forepeak, huddled around the anchor winch and the forward mast. And my crew's got their survival suits on. We've got them tied to the rail. I've got the door open. I mean, by now I'm never get seasick, but I was so nerved out. I'm outside puking. I mean, my nerves are just shot. By now the waves are a good 30, 40 feet. I mean, no exaggeration. It is blowing 120. The waves would have been taller if it hadn't been knocking the tops off them. And you look out there and you've got like a half a second when you're at the top of that wave to see anything. And then it's all you see is a wall of water. And it's like, God, how am I going to get 6 people out of the water without running them over? And I'm not a real religious man, but you kind of think about praying at that time. And no shit, all of a sudden, it's the middle of the night. It's in the middle of the winter in the middle of the night. It's pitch black. And it lights up like daylight. It's like, whoa. And then you hear it over the ocean. The ocean at 120 miles an hour makes a lot of noise. The boat vibrates. The mast is vibrating. Everything just noisy. And hear the roar. It's a Coast Guard C-130. All lit up. Flying over. If you can just hang on a few more minutes, the chopper is right behind. They flew the C-130 to catch the chopper in case he went down. So we're watching this guy. The pilot asked me to turn in the trough. Oh yeah, that's what I love to do. Shine the lights on the situation, because by now the Nowitna's, the engine room's gone. And I'm shining the lights directly on this. I watch that chopper lower the basket down. You got a mast there, a big old mast, but the boat's at such a steep angle, the mast is too, so, but he's still very limited. It's blowing like crazy. He lowers that basket down. The chopper is so far in front of the whole boat because of the wind blowing on that basket. Person jumps in, the pilot raises up and immediately lets the wind take him back a bit, and they winch him up 6 times. Every one of them. Got them all. And then the pilot calls me, thanks us, asked us if we would mind remaining on scene for another 3 hours until the Coast Guard cutter gets there. I said, well, sir, every time I come to the top of these huge monster waves, we had a hell of a radar. I said, I can see nobody anywhere. Granted, they could be down in the trough at the same time I'm on the top, but I see nobody. I'm sure you have a lot better view than I do, but I'm going to respectfully decline that and work my way closer to the shoreline. I mean, we still had 40 miles to go. I understand, no problem. And then the cutter got there and apparently followed the Nowitna around for a couple days, and then they finally blew it up, shot it, sunk it. I don't know exactly where, but that was, been to a few rescues, and a couple of them we were the only ones around to save them, but that was probably about the best day. Seeing the Coast Guard do that, you know, no fear. Oh, they might have been scared shitless too, but not letting that fear hinder what they needed to do. That was awesome.
That's a great story.
Yeah, it was
So does that turn out as your worst day too? I mean, it sounds like it's kind of your worst day.
Oh, no, there's been, days where you've just worked 30 hours, and then you go beat the ice off the boat, and then, you're tired. You're just tired. You're hungry. Dale was a real driver. I mean, you're tired, you're hungry, but you got to get that string in first. Got to get that string. So he'd finally get the point. This was my favorite trick, is I'd go into the forepeak, I'd grab a Snickers, stab it with the Victronox, and get the propane torch out and start heating it. He'd holler down, "Brown, what the hell are you doing?" Says, "It's about time we had a hot meal, asshole." And he'd call us in finally a little later. Call the cook in at least. But, it's just those days. You're just tired. You're beat. You're hungry. You're missing home. The weather's shitty. You had to beat ice. Then you get in and you just lay down. Yeah, I got to get up in 2 hours for wheel watch or whatever. But you just lay down and the alarm goes off and something has gone to hell. And you got to go take care of that now. Of course, there went your time, because you're going to pull that string when it's time to pull it anyway. But, yeah, I don't know. There was one, it was going to look like the worst day. Melanie, I believe, was even on the boat. This was on the Labrador. We were tendering for Wardco packing. We were in not too far out of Ketchikan. They send us into this going to go into this little rock pile and hang out till the seiners come in. I get close, and the boat just wants to swerve hard and go to shore. No matter what I did, jog stick, steering wheel, had a 5-foot steering wheel, and just wanted to turn. Crap. Well, luckily we were real close. That thing had twin 3412, so a lot of power. So we were close enough I could throttle back real hard on the opposing engine and kind of counteract the slight bit of the rudder. Managed to get it in there. Forbush calls up, and how's things going? Yeah, we're just waiting. I said, but I can't steer the boat. And once I load it and we head out of here, and the weather coming up, it might be a chore. No problem. Just get the fish. We'll send the Ocean Mate over and he can tow you in. So we load up the fish, and the whole time it's just eating at me. Towed in, I got to be towed in. So I'd had the issue before on the Ramblin' Rose shortly after it was built. You do all that piping for the steering system. A lot of it involves good old threaded steel pipe. Got a little piece of a chip, never got cleaned out of the line, went in and logged into the pilot valves. So it was holding them open. So I'm thinking that's the same problem on this. So I go down to the engine room. Everybody goes to bed. I sent the crew all to bed. I'll take care of the chiller. So I'm down there, huge engine room. So I'm down there working on the chiller, and I thought, what do I got to lose? I'm going to go tear that thing apart. I mean, shit, I'm going to be towed in anyway. So I go down, I take the solenoids off the pilot valve thing, and I pull it apart. Oh, damn it. It's not a chip. One of the plungers has broke. So there's nothing. They got a little plunger with maybe a 1/2 inch thick with a rubber seal on it, and then a long lead piece out of it that's 1/8 inch thick or something with the spring around it. Broke off. I'm like, well, that's screwed. And then I got to thinking, where have I seen one of those? Where have I seen it? Well, prior to getting on boats, I did fire equipment for my uncle, and I knew that this one particular brand of fire extinguisher has something in there that looks just like that. There's one right over there. So I go over to the wall, crack the neck open, bleed the pressure off, pull the valve apart. Sure as shit, it worked. I stuck it in there, go up, ching, 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 turn the wheel, everything. It works. All right, call up. Dave, forget the ocean maid. I got her running. So we go over there, and, you know, that was going to be my most, at least to that point, most embarrassing time to being towed in. I mean, there was a bunch of old salts there that didn't really care much for the Alaska boat fleet, because we weren't the Ward Cove tenders. You know, they were all union and we weren't. And I could just imagine the ridicule of me driving in tied to the side of one of their cannery tenders, you know. So it came out all right.
Excellent. Don, what has the sea given to you?
You know, that's a hard one. My wife might not believe this, but patience, really. I used to be...
She just gave you a look like, there's no way.
Yeah, she's got selected. She can block things out well.
She had a very surprised look on her face when you said that.
I used to be very, very, very impatient. And when you're traveling 2,500 miles from Ballard to Naknek at 8 or 9 knots, you learn patience, or at least how to keep your mind occupied. It is a lot of confidence, you know. I feel like I could get myself or my family out of whatever predicament, you know. We were at, a few years ago, we went to my wife's grandmother's 100th birthday during COVID times. Didn't want to stay in hotels if we could even get them, so we took the motorhome from Arlington, Washington to Mount Vernon, Texas. Can't remember, 2,000 some odd miles. Stayed in the motorhome. It was great. But Texas was a lot more open as far as COVID than Washington was. You could go in restaurants and stuff. Mm-hmm. So we're getting ready to leave Texas and head back home, and we'd borrowed Melanie's father's car to use, so she drove it back from the campground, and I went straight to fill up the motorhome with diesel, park it, and we were going into the truck stop to have breakfast. Lo and behold, I just backed the motorhome out, got the dog's water when something runs into the motorhome. Semi drove his 40-foot trailer all down the front of it. Bam, 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 bam. He had one of those ribbed trailers. Threw the mirror into the windshield. He kept going. We were screwed. But, so the mirror's hanging, the front's crunched, the windshield shattered. And it's like a piece of glass 4 feet 3 inches wide and 5 feet tall. It's half the windshield. And so we get the cop report filed, the insurance company, and call, and it's going to be 10 days to get a windshield in Texas. And it's like she had to be back for, she's speech language therapist at a school, and she had to be back to school. So how are we going to fix this? So I drove to the lumber yard, took the mirror, needed the mirror. It was shattered too, but I needed that big alarm up there. So I got a piece of 2x4 from the blocking of leveling the motorhome. I reached, pulled the generator compartment out, got in there, ran screws in through the mangled fiberglass to at least this. Went in and bought, and everybody needs this in their car, in their boat, their camper, clear Gorilla Tape. It is the strongest. It's like 10 times stronger than packing tape. I coated the inside of the windshield with that all the way across. 2 rolls. Pretty psychedelic where it overlapped, because as we started driving down the road, the sun comes through and it would change the color a little, give it a tint, and where it overlapped it would be red here and orange there. I mean, it was psychedelic. So we go, my father-in-law sees us doing all that, ran across the street to the Car Quest and bought a convex mirror, clear Gorilla Tape that to the big housing, and we took off down the road. But first, my father-in-law, he goes, how did you ever have all of that stuff? Most people do not have that stuff to go camping. I mean, the 18-volt drill, the saws, all of that. I looked at him and, Ed, when you've been in the Bering Sea for as long as I have, and you're like 500 miles offshore, nobody's coming to rescue you. You need to have the crap you need to take care of yourself.
You might
to
need
get
some
home.
shit.
Yeah. And he made me promise 47 years before that I would take good care of her and keep her safe. So that's why I had all that crap in the motorhome.
Awesome.
And you've done a darn good job.
What is the sea taking away from you?
Family time. You know, a lot of time at just being around family. You know, it's provided us a good living when needed. Yeah, we've had some seasons where I didn't make money. The crew did, you know, and you're looking at being at Alaska Boat Company, we leased the boats on bareboat charters. So when we headed out, I was responsible for $40,000 to $80,000 right off the bat, you know. And so until we caught so many crab, I didn't make a dime. And you know, a 60-hour St. Matthews season, you better be on them, or a 3-day Pribilof season, you know. And if you don't get on them right away, it can be tough. But
You had some good years though. Right?
yeah, we did. And I was lucky enough to, both my daughters really didn't, well, I know one in particular really didn't know what she wanted to do after school and didn't really think about going to college or anything, and brought them along on the boat after their senior year for a summer of tendering, and both of them decided after that going to college and learning how to use their brain might be a good thing, you know. And so that was really cool, having the kids come up, and they came up a couple times.
Sound like Melanie spent some time with you on the boats.
Yeah, and then having her on the boat. She was an awesome cook. She spent both time on the Labrador and the Tuck Sydney.
The Labrador, she's just like the Bulldog, right?
Yeah.
Same
Yeah.
way out?
Yeah.
Big, beautiful boat.
Yeah, lots of power.
Yeah.
Lots of power. Fast. We'd have a little deal, and when I first ran the Labrador, we tendered for yardarm knot, Al. And so me and the Cornelia Marie would be taking fish for the yardarm in Igigik. I've always spent most of my time in Igigik, both taking set net fish in front of the village and either Red Bluff or South Channel. And so whoever got to the yardarm first, and that was back in the days when they only had like an opening a day, not this two-day things where you're just go. So whoever got to the yardarm first got to unload first, and then you would race back, and heck, you had time to take a nap and relax because there wasn't going to be an opening until the next day. So we had a little competition who could get up there first. So I had it down. I think that's the only reason there's the upper channel leaving Igigik is we plowed that out. He would be...
The Labrador has to be 12 feet.
Yeah,
11
loaded.
feet, 11 and a half feet.
Right in there loaded. And we would leave on a 1-foot tide. I'd pull the anchor at Red Bluff at 1
So
foot.
you're the reason our boats can make it out.
Yeah, and we would go racing. You'd hit that thing, and it would feel this, and then whoo, you were across in deep water. And old God, I wish I could remember his name on the Cornelia. It was after he was
Phil.
Phil's relief skipper, and he has passed away since too. Anthony. Yeah. The photographer had a lot of pictures with national fishermen and all. So we had this little competition. I'd go by him and honk the big old horn, and off we'd go.
See you later. I'm getting a nap today.
Yeah, when those, when it's the bottom of the, just starting to flood and coming up towards the north there, I mean, you gain.
3 hours, you're up there.
Yeah, you gain 3-4 knots. I mean, the Labrador do 15 during that,
I've worked a lot with the bulldog, so I totally get what you mean.
Yeah.
So, Don, first, thanks for sharing your story.
Yeah, thanks
It's
for
really awesome. But any final thoughts you'd like to share? Anything you'd like to share?
I think that anybody that wants to go do it should try it. Not with the plan that you're going to go up there and just become rich overnight. If you think you might want to do it, go give it a try. But God, you got to know what you're into. I mean, it is not long hours, and I mean not talking going to work for 8 hours and coming home having dinner and then playing video games until 3 in the morning. I mean, it's good, hard physical work, stressful. Just, I don't know, to tell you the truth, I think if I wanted a life on the sea now, I'd probably get a license and go work in tugs or something like that, But I'm really happy I did it.
Wouldn't change it?
A lot less time in the beginning. In the beginning we were gone 9-10 months, but you were afraid that if you didn't go, you would lose your spot, and somebody else that was willing, wouldn't come around 3 months from now, you can get back on the boat, because that guy didn't want to leave, so I think that it really came at a good point in my life when we needed it. We were established as a couple. We had, it's just being gone was the hardest part of it all. That's the only part I think I'd change, is try to have more regulated time. But of course now, I mean, crab season's a month or whatever, and a guy could practically go do it and get more time at home. But
It sounds like you took it with you, though, a lot of time.
Yeah. I think the best time, though, was about a week and a half ago. We took the boat into Ketchikan, made it on a Friday. I think we tied up at the Alaska General Seafoods dock at 11:43. And that was only the third time I docked the boat all year. I let my relief skipper, Charles, dock it, get lots of experience, docking in Bristol Bay, trying to keep one side of the boat to the dock means you've got to back in against a pretty strong current at times, and try not to take out the gill netters they let tie up on the dock right in front of you or right behind you, and handing that pin over to Charles, called the whole crew up. We have a little tradition. The day we start on charter, we number the calendar days 1 through 65. And then we number them backwards, 65 through 1. So at the end of every day, we cross them off. Okay, 1 down, 64 to go. Handed him the pin, said, don't ever cross one off before midnight. Bad luck. Here it is. I went to bed. Got up the next morning, the new crewman came down. Everybody moved. Charles moved from the engineer stateroom up, and the deckhand moved to the engineer, and the new guy took the other spot and went uptown, got a hotel room. Went out, met some friends for dinner, sitting there on the channel in Ketchikan. having Mexican dinner. I'm not a drinker except for when I have blended strawberry margaritas with Mexican dinner. Having a margarita, here comes the Botany Bay out. We had some gear we brought down from Naknek for Alaska General that was going to go on the Aquila. So I watched them leave, go out to the Aquila, tie up. You know, that was a little weird. Here goes your boat. You're not on it. But I just got my second margarita as they were pulling up. And by the time that was over, I was ready to go back to the hotel, and I was over that. You know, it was done.
You were retired.
But then today, I'm driving here, and I get a phone call from a friend, and hi, what's this I heard? And I got chewed out for retiring, and
Melanie, be careful.
I already know. I know this. This is
she
gonna
was in the
happen.
truck at the time. And,
Captains are scarce.
yeah.
Years have gone by where it's I'm retiring. This is the year, and then the next year, this is the year. So I think this is the year, but I'm not.
Captains
positive.
are scarce, but good captains are really scarce.
Well, he's a good captain. And I'm really, really proud of him. There's no doubt.
So, Don, thanks.
Yeah.
But Melanie, what about you? What has the sea given to you, and what has it taken away?
Well, I would say the sea has given us a really good living and a lot of pride in my husband and how he handles things. Like he said, whether it's on the boat or at home, he can do anything. He can build anything. He can fix anything. He's always helpful with other people, and I have no doubt he's saved lives, throughout the process. As far as what it's taken away, certainly, like he said, the time with him, because sometimes it was 8 months a year, and I was a single mom, basically, right? And we were raising 2 young daughters. But the thing I will say is that when Donnie was home, he spent really good quality time with us.
Present.
Because he didn't have to go work anyplace else. He just had that time off. And he always is busy, so he always had something he would be doing. But the good quality time, and of course his daughters adore him. We all just love him so much. So I think there's that pride, in how he's done over the years. He had a really long career, and he put a lot of heart and soul into it, and then at home did the same thing. So I think it was kind of a balance of good and bad, but at the same time, I feel like it was a good thing overall.
I think that we're going to hear more of your story when I want to put you in touch with Megan Waldrop. She has a podcast called the Partners of Commercial Fishermen.
That'd be great.
And she has a great following and an excellent side of the one who stays home.
Of the
Whether that's the male or female.
fisherman's wife or husband or significant other or
Sure.
whatever. Sure, that sounds great.
And that I think that's going to be a really good avenue.
That would be wonderful. I'd like to do that.
To express that. So, Don, anything else you want to add?
I took a lot of pride in not getting anybody hurt. 36 years, I think we sent 2 guys to the clinic. One was being an idiot and stabbed himself with the Victorinox. And the other was an ailment, I can't remember, but just sick, basically. And I always told Melanie how, we're totally safe, nothing's going to happen and all that. But
Liar.
Yes.
I
know
think
that.
it was the Labrador. No, maybe the Tuck Sydney. We were tendering on the outside and out on Doll Island. Doll Island used to be really a hot spot 10,
I don't think my listeners know
15
where
years
that's at.
ago. They're in southeast, just north of the Canadian border. So it's was a really popular area for seining, especially for salmon other than pinks. They did really, really well on the money fish out there. So used to have 5-6 boats we'd unload, and they'd usually load up. And was one windy night, bad night. The storm came up. We were all hoping to get out of there and back to Ketchikan, which is about a 12-hour run from there. Open to get in, and just didn't happen. But I think it was a Labrador because it was big. It wasn't bothering us. And we get down on the lower end of Prince of Wales Island before we turn and head up Clarence Straits towards Ketchikan and get another Mayday. It's one of our seiners, and he's going down. Julie Celeste, Mike. And you could hear it, you know, and we were close. And he's right off the end of Prince of Wales Island, which is rock piles and sheer faces. And there's no way he's going to make it around the corner and anywhere. They're thinking they're going to have to abandon ship. And there's no lights on. They do have power, a little bit of steering with the wheel, but no lights. I come up behind them all lit up like we were in the Bering Sea fishing crab. And their seine net is floated. They're so low in the stern. They've kicked they were towing the seine skiff. But the net would come up off the deck in the waves. I mean, they were that close. The crew was all huddled around the back of the wheelhouse, holding on to the ladder, waiting to just jump off the boat, basically. Mike was in the wheelhouse steering. And I said, well, Mike, I said, you're in a good spot for this, because we were just up inside of this, anchored on the way out to Security Cove a few days ago. I can't remember. I think it was Nichols Bay. I said, just drive straight ahead. He says, my radars, everything's out, and all I see is sheer wall. I said, there is a crack there. I'll tell you which way to turn. And plus, then we were big. We were behind him. We were breaking the swell down some from him. And we managed to get him in, steered in, and inside and around the corner where we dropped our anchor real quick and tied them to us as they were going down, and immediately fired up the transvac and dumped it into the lazarette, pumped rags, everything out of there, but we got it to where they could float, and then followed them into town once they figured out what the issue was. I don't remember, but here I told her how safe it was, nothing ever happens, and here she's witnessing this save, you know.
Putting on my
you were there?
survival suit, and once we figured out what was going on, told us all to put on our survival suits and be ready to do whatever we had to do. That was a time when I hadn't gotten over feeling seasick, and all of a sudden I had no seasickness. I was calm. It was really weird.
This is like the third time that you've mentioned having your crew put on survival suits. They're not maneuverable.
No.
Oh.
But if they go over the side of the boat, I want my crew floating.
Right.
So it's really
In
safe.
Cold water.
Yeah.
Really safe.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
he
we
was
did.
really good about making sure we went through.
I feel like he's about ready to tell me to put one on.
I
I mean, we're next to the lake.
You gotta be safe.
You want one more funny one?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. We're tendering out of Old Harbor
Old Harbor is where?
on the east side of Kodiak. Strong fishery. It's a group of mainly natives in Old Harbor, and they're excellent fishermen. And so we would go up there on the second day of a closure and take fish in front of the village. Great group of people. I still see them some of them in Bristol Bay now, this last year. The grandsons of the ones from back then. And we hear a mayday, so we told the last boat, we got to go down there. And so we raced down there, and the guys on the reef, they fell asleep on the south end of Kodiak Island and drove the boat right on a reef instead of turning. I mean, they're on there, and the tide's going out, and he's in a panic, and, well, we're here. What do I do? What do I do? I says, well, you got to get lighter. You got to get lighter so you can be pulled off. And because he's worried he's going to get beat up. And, well, can you come in and take our fish? I said, Kenny, what do you want me to do? Back up, get up to speed, and join you on the reef? No, you're going to have to pitch your fish over. And they did. By then, his dad shows up. They brought the seine net off of the boat, brought it over to the Challenger, and then I think it was Emil, stuck his boom over and put his net on us. So we've got him really lightened
Emil
up.
Christensen?
Yeah.
Small world.
Yeah. So we got him, lightened up. They got rid of their catch. They got the net off. the skiffs off, and he wants our booby balls. What do you want those? Well, I'm going to stock them inside the galley and all that so we'll float. I says, I took that course. It's not going to work. I said, I'm sending you over a blue tarp. What the hell am I going to do with the blue tarp? I said, as soon as they pull you off that reef, they hooked up two 58-footers and yarded him. As soon as you have it tied up ahead of time onto your bow, as soon as they pull you off that reef and you put it in gear to go forward, you throw the tarp over your bow and under the boat. Just make sure it's not going to hit the wheels. It was the bow of the boat was what was crushed. They could feel it. You know, there wasn't water coming in, but they could feel it moving. Mm-hmm. The Coast Guard had flown over and dropped a pump, but they couldn't get it running. So this is how we're going to save you. That'll never work. Well, they pulled them off backwards, threw that tarp over, and they made it all the way into the beach. Then they beached it. And then on the next high tide, they'd rolled the log down, and they got it bow up on the log, and they were able to fiberglass it together out in the boondocks and make it back up. But,
How it works.
yeah. Can you come in here and pump our fish?
No. We just get right alongside you.
Yeah. But yeah, it was. I
Sounds
really
like
loved
you've had
tendering down there.
You've had a great experience.
Seen a lot of stuff.
Yeah. There's nothing like Alaska. There's nothing
Yeah.
like the beauty of Alaska.
Well, we lived in Fairbanks for 4 years after I went up to work at the Pay and Pack store, and we saw a lot of stuff. I did construction after about 6 months of working at the Pay and Pack store. They pissed me off, so I got a job working for a general contractor, and I went all over Barrow, Kotzebue, all kinds of places. Saw a lot of
I've
stuff.
been in Kotzebue.
Yeah.
I spent probably 5 months out of my life there.
Oh, really?
So
Yeah.
I've had time there. But
Yeah. Small world.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
it is.
our community is really small.
Yeah.
You know,
And tight.
and family.
Yeah.
You know, family. Like
Yeah.
you guys just came to my home today, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Thanks for having
you're
us.
welcome here. 100. You know what I mean?
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just how it is. But
Well, I appreciate what you're doing.
I thank you.
Yeah.
And thanks to my sponsor, Extra Tough. I just got to mention.
All right. All right. Yes. Extra Toughs, not sandals. Even if they do have those little bumpy things that your feet set on that are supposed to massage your feet, wear Extra Toughs.
Maybe you won't go overboard and tell people that's how you tie up boats.
That's how you always do.
I think we're gonna leave on the laughter.
All right.
So,
Sounds great.
you guys, thanks for listening. Dawn, thanks for sharing. Melanie, thanks for attending
Thanks for
and
having me.
having input. And you guys support us however you can. Go to our gear store, get yourself a sweatshirt, a hat, something. Or if not, just give it a like and a share. Would be greatly appreciated. Until we see you next time, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Galley Stories. We hope you like what the net brought in. Please leave us a review on iTunes. Whether you like it or not, we're not fishing for compliments. Look us up on Facebook and Twitter too, and reach out to us at galleystories@gmail.com.